So wonderful to see you. I can see there's 77 people on the line. I've been having a look at different roles and so on coming on. Let me introduce myself. So I am Dawn Perriam. I am a police officer. My official role is a Detective Chief Inspector within Devon and Cornwall Police. My priorities, if you like, or my job role is I am the Violence Against Women and Girls Tactical Lead for Devon and Cornwall Police. And I'm also the Stalking and Harassment Portfolio Lead as well. My background really is CID and investigation. I spent a little bit of time in the Intelligence Directorate as well. I've been in this role for about 2.5 years, and it's an absolute privilege to be doing this work and trying to improve how Devon and Cornwall Police tackle violence against women and girls. I was asked to come in and do a stalking awareness. I'm aware I've done one for Rebecca before. There is some changes in this one. So if you have seen me speak about stalking, I have got some additions in this, which I hope you'll find useful. I'm going to start with a bit about violence against women and girls and just why and where it's come from and why it's so important for the police. As well as then feeding out into yourselves as partners of our organisation. I'll then move on to covering some stalking. I'm anticipating from now, it'll probably take about 45 minutes, and then we can pause, we can have some questions at the end. I do have some videos to play in this, so bear with me while I fiddle around and make sure it's on the right screen. I have 3 screens, so just have a little patience with me. I have a wonderful colleague on the line called Rachel Cheesley, and what she'll do is she'll keep an eye on the chat bar and see if she can answer any questions as we're going through. And she'll also give me a shout if any hands come up, because I'm really keen if you want to have a conversation about anything, if you want to just interrupt me, and we can have a chat about any of the things that we're talking about. Some of the slides, I apologise, are very wordy, but I knew we were going to circulate it, so you may not be able to take it all on the screen, but you will get a copy of most of it. And I just give you a little, there's a video that I'll be showing that hasn't gone live yet. You will get that in the next few weeks, but I will take it out of this presentation. It also makes it too big and I can't send it, so there's 2 reasons for it, really. So what I'm going to do, if everybody is happy and ready to go, I'm not going to be able to see the screen once I load this up. I'm going to make sure there's sound on here. And then I'm just going to, hopefully from the beginning. Now, can you see the slides with all the ones down the side, Rachel, or can you see the main screen?
The ones with the ones down the side.
Let me just see if I can move that screen. So I can. Okay, let's try again and just see if you can see the slides.
No, we've just got your, oh no, we have, yeah, it's there.
So hopefully what you can see, which is behind me, but I've got it in front of me, is the opening slide, which is VOG and stalking and me, which I've given you the introduction. Just to give you a little bit of a health warning, I do talk initially about a murder, so just a little health warning. If anybody wants to leave or anybody wants to have a chat at the end, it's just to make you aware of that. As we're talking about the stalking and some of the data as well, if there's any issues whatsoever, just give us a shout afterwards and we can have a chat. So let's get going. So violence against women and girls, why? You can see on this slide here, it's a picture of Sarah Everard. Sarah Everard was murdered by a police officer who was employed by the Metropolitan Police. I'm sure you'll all be aware of it. It impacted the public, but it impacted the police family as well and people who work alongside the police. And what you have here is you have somebody committing the most horrific crime to a member of the public who they should have been able to trust. So back in 2021, when this occurred, the Metropolitan Police obviously had to take certain steps to try and rebuild that trust and confidence that had been lost. It was recognised nationally that this impacted on policing, and the National Task Force was set up back in 2021 by Maggie Blythe. That National Task Force for Violence Against Women and Girls was basically out to all police forces. This is what you need to do, and it was under 3 pillars, which I'll talk through in a moment. And there was 3 main focuses that police had to report back on to make sure that we were delivering what was required. What you'll see at the top of the slide there is the strategic policing requirement, and this is really important for policing. It's what the government expect us to deliver. So prior to this, terrorism was on there, child sexual exploitation and abuse, public order on a large scale. All of those types of things were within the strategic policing requirement, but what wasn't in there was violence against women and girls. That was added, as you can see, in 2023. So that's really important for us as police, and it's really important for me because it means that this subject matter is not going away. It's not something that the Met Police have just said, right, let's do some stuff to try and build the trust and confidence. This is enduring, and this is something that we all need to be working towards. One of the questions I do get is, what about men and boys? From a police perspective, we still investigate and we still take exactly the same responses to any offences against men or boys. What we're doing here in this space is recognising the disproportionality that impacts women and girls. And literally 10 minutes ago, I had a freedom of information that I had to review. And whoever had made the request had asked how many victims of stalking were female and how many victims of stalking were male. And it was about 80% were female. So it just gives you an understanding of that disproportionality. What you'll see on here, and I've just picked out also, is that stalking is a predictor of, stalking behaviours is a predictor of really serious violence where somebody may come to harm or even homicide as well. I will move on. These stats just came out from our centre, so the National Policing Centre. And what you can see on there, and it's really prevalent, is even though we know that there's a huge amount of offending against women and girls, there's seen an increase last year of 37%. And what they've done there is they've just put in that absolutely horrific stat that 1 in 12 women will be a victim of violence every year. So this was just put in here to show the sheer scale of it and what the information that we're being given from a police perspective. Now, the next 3 slides are really full of information. And what it is it's our Violence Against Women and Girls Devon and Cornwall Police strategy. So you will have a copy of that. You'll be able to look at it in your own time, and you'll be able to make contact with myself or any of my team that I work with. If there's any questions or anything that you think that work you're doing would fit into this and you want to collaborate going forward. I'm also really happy to take any feedback as well. So it's quite complicated. Initially, when the VORP task force started, it was built under 3 pillars. And you can see the 3 pillars on this slide are the 3 boxes at the top. So that is relatively straightforward for us. So pillar 1 is about building trust and confidence. Now, this isn't just with the public, this is also internal. So it's making sure as an organisation, the organisation is trusted that people can report offending or discrimination or any of those types of things. They have a confidence in Devon and Cornwall Police. So pillar 1 there is both public trust and internal. There's 3 main things under there that are really important for us to deliver. So you'll see around ethical, compassionate leadership. It's around being intolerant, and I use that word really strongly, intolerant of misogyny. And I think that that's really important. And I can remember having a conversation about whether we'd use that word, but I think it's the right word to use in that context. And then for work standards, standards and workplace behaviour. Pillar 2 is really where the police sit and where we feel the most comfortable. So this is going out, identifying someone's committed a crime, arresting someone, investigating that person, and trying to get that person through the criminal justice system. So that's the one we feel really, really safe in, and that's the one that we feel most comfortable in police. Safer spaces is the one where it feeds out into your partnerships, and that is just about trying to make our communities a safer place. So as you can imagine, from my point of view as the VORG tactical lead, this feeds out into most departments within the police, whether that's road policing, whether that is our professional standards department, whether it's the control room, custody, investigation teams, all of this has to be embedded throughout the whole organisation. The middle part of the slide there is 3 things that I ask of individuals. So it's just to challenge discrimination, to make sure that we're committed to that investigative approach where we put the victim at the heart of it and we listen to the whole picture rather than just look at something as a single incident without really feeling what's happening. That last one is to looking for opportunities to prevent harm. So that's kind of summary of that slide. The next 2 have so many words on there, so I'm just going to flick through it quite quickly. And where it becomes a bit complicated is that this year, so end of 2024, they have made a decision that the new framework will be based under the 4 Ps. So if you're not aware of that, it's protect, pursue, prevent, and prepare. So this is where your 3 pillars and your 4 Ps have to come in line with one another. I have to be honest, and I'll be really honest with yourselves. I have used slight poetic license in that I wanted 3 things in each box. So some of them do cross over into other areas. I'm not going to keep this slide on here for a long time, but it just gives you deliverables that we are trying to achieve and trying to deliver within the next 12 months. I'll pick out one that is relatively straightforward. So increasing the use of DVDSs and CSODs. So that in normal language is Claire's Law and Sarah's Law. That is for the public to be able to come in and find out information about their partner or ex-partner. So my colleague that's on the line has done loads of work internally to really try and improve that process. So what we now need to do is make sure we have a really timely process and we are fulfilling the needs of the public. So that just gives you an idea on that slide. And we have 2 of these slides. So the second one is just the continuation of these deliverables. And one of the things that will probably be quite interesting to you is under the safer spaces is public health approach. It's how we work with our partners, and me coming in and speaking to yourself is part of that. It's part of building that network and making sure yourselves are aware of what we're trying to achieve. And actually it's about us being creative and working together and seeing what else we can do. I will pause there because I know that's an awful lot of information that I've just thrown at you. Just if there's any questions about the VORG strategy. I'll take silence as fantastic. Rachel, no hands up?
No hands that I can see.
Fabulous, thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on. So the next thing I'm going to show you is a video. So this is the bit where I just want you to have a little bit of patience with me trying to get it onto the correct screen. I wanted to show you Project Night Eye. And it is a package that we're going to be sharing out with our partners. You may not be aware of Project Night Eye. It's my background, if you can still see that. And it's all about targeting sexual predators in the nighttime economy. So if we think back to the strategy, safer spaces, you think about relentless perpetrator pursuit, you think about trust and confidence, Project Night Eye delivers it. And that's why I was using it as an example. And I really like the video that we've put together. So I'm hoping within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be able to share this with you all, and you'll be able to use this as you see fit. There's 2 different versions of the video. There is a partnership video and there's also a public one. And I'm hoping if it works that I am going to show you the, wait a second. I'm hoping I'm going to show you the partnership one. Rachel, do you have the slide with the YouTube link on?
Yeah, I do.
I'm hoping it won't move to another screen. Let me just stop sharing for a second. There we go. Right, can you see that on the screen?
Oh, there.
And if you can just interrupt me if you can't hear the sound, that would be great.
Okay. Can't hear anything, Dawn.
Can't hear?
No, no sound.
I knew you would come in useful. Bear with me and apologies. I'm going to go again. Can you see the main screen or has it gone over to the other one?
So we've got your presentation at the moment.
Okay. Knew this was going to happen. Bear with. And then you can't find where your mouse has gone. It's the biggest issue. All right. I'm hoping that.
Yep, can see it. Oh.
Yeah, I'm just fiddled around. I needed to switch the sound on. I hope you'll be with me shortly. Can you see that?
Yep, can see it.
Fingers crossed, everyone.
Project Night Eye. Project Night Eye is the police response which focuses on targeting sexual predators within the evening and nighttime economy, ENTE, to create safer spaces for women and girls. By addressing predatory behaviour proactively and collaborating with local communities, Project Night Eye works to ensure that women and girls feel safer and supported. Tackling violence against women and girls, VAUG incidents, is a priority for Devon and Cornwall Police, especially in places where these incidents are more likely to occur. We'd like to ask the public to help us gather information and intelligence, and prevent and reduce violence against women and girls by calling out predatory behaviour, such as isolation, a person trying to separate someone from their friends; excessive attention, someone being overly persistent despite discomfort; unwanted physical contact, like clubs and bars, public transport, sporting venues, etc. Verbal harassment, catcalling and sexually charged comments directed at women in nightlife settings. Drink spiking, adding substances to someone's drink without their knowledge to incapacitate them. Tech-enabled harassment, using apps or devices to stalk or track individuals after initial contact in social settings. Image-based abuse, taking or distributing non-consensual photos or videos of individuals in public spaces. Serious sexual assault, rape or attempted rape occurring in secluded areas near or within venues. Public transport harassment, harassment or aggressive behaviour occurring on buses or during rides home from nightlife venues. Some of the places predatory behaviour or behaviours of concern might take place are bars and pubs, nightclubs, restaurants and fast food venues, concert venues, cinemas and theatres, gyms and fitness centres, parks and outdoor spaces, public transport, shops open late at night, and hotels. By addressing predatory behaviour proactively and collaborating with local communities, Project Night Eye works to ensure that women and girls feel safer and supported, especially in spaces where VAUG incidents are more likely to occur. If you come across such behaviours of concern, you can take one of the following actions. Phone the police on 999 if there is immediate danger. Approach a security guard, bartender, bus driver, gym attendant or similar to let them know of any potential danger. Report via the police website www.dc.police.uk/TUA. Remember, watch out for behaviours of concern. intervene safely if you can, and report behaviours of concern. Thank you.
So interestingly, I've just played you the public one. The partnership one goes into more details about how partners report the information in. So that's an example of one of the 2 videos that we're going to be launching, with some guidance around the types of information that we want and need. Just to give you some context around Project Night Eye, what happens is that our intelligence directorate will pull together all the information and intelligence that's come in over a period of a month. They'll present that into a specific meeting which takes place in each area. So, for example, there's one in South Devon, New Devon, Plymouth, in Cornwall, and they will take that package of information that they have and say, this is what's come up in the last month. These are the areas we need to focus to target. It could be there's a specific pub, or there could be a specific location. So my ask from yourselves, and as any ongoing conversations that you have with public or in any forum really that you're in, is that we don't get enough intelligence. When we initially ran this as a pilot last year, we didn't get that intelligence in from people because people didn't know that we wanted to know about it. So it could be something's just made a person feel uncomfortable, or someone, it hasn't gone into committing a crime. We still want that information. And what we're hoping is these 2 videos that will be launched shortly will help people understand the type of information that we want. So I'm hoping that some of you will be able to use this, and you'll be able to share this out wider, and hopefully together we can try and make these public spaces a much safer space. So I am going to get back to the PowerPoint. So again, please bear with me while I just fiddle around with multiple screens, and we will get going again. Oh, thank you. Is it Alicia?
It is, yeah.
Thank you for go for it. Well, how can I help?
Oh, it just jogged my memory in terms of, I actually remember years ago now being followed in a supermarket and actually asking the security guard to help me get back to my car, because I was really, but it never even crossed my mind to raise it as a concern, because nothing happened, but I was concerned enough to seek someone out. But I was just wondering, with the videos, where are they going to be launched? Like, will they be on, how will it be made sure that everybody knows about them?
So we're going to do, from our corporate comms, there's going to be a public launch. There's going to be 2 packages, and then it'll be us to then circulate it through all of our partners. So what we will be able to do is I can share it into this forum. I can share it with whoever needs it and whoever wants it. It's really interesting. I've just done another, not a presentation, but I was chatting through some bits, and this came up. And I was saying that the majority of, I would say all women at some point have been a victim of this type of behaviour, but we accept it, we move on from it, and we adjust our lives to deal with it. And this is nothing against men, because men are so supportive. But a man will never think, I can't go for a run tonight at 8 o'clock because it's dark. And it's not their fault. It's because they don't have the lived experience of those adaptations. It's really funny. I think back of what I was doing when I was 20, what I do at 30, what I do at 40. Now I'm 50. The way I act and what I'm willing and not willing to do has changed massively. So, it's about making sure people know we need this information. We have to understand.
Yeah, thank you.
It's Devon and Cornwall, in answer to the question on the sidebar, but I have shared it with Dorset, and I've shared it with another force up country, and shared it with a Welsh force. So some do pick it up, but it is a Devon and Cornwall one. Now, I am on the wrong screen. So Alicia, if you want to fill the time while I'm trying to fiddle around with this, I'd be very grateful. Right, let me go from here. Resume. Oh, do you know, there's something about technology, isn't there, that is just a wonderful thing. I've got another video as well, so it's going to go even worse. Right, I may just go to my slides, and it's just going to be easier to hold it on this screen. So bear with me that you'll be able to see the slides that are coming up. Rach, can we see that all right?
Yeah, you can see it. We can see your sidebar.
Yeah, I'm just going to go for
but
it.
I don't think it. Yeah.
Right, let's talk about stalking. Stalking within Devon and Cornwall Police, myself, the people I work with, investigation, we recognise the risk surrounding stalking, and there is a significant risk. Now, again, part of the conversation we were just having is that if you think back in your lives, you may have been a victim of this without realizing. You may have had unwanted phone calls or texts that just won't stop, even though you've told someone to stop texting. You might have even had someone turn up at your house, giving you unwanted gifts. So stalking is not unusual, it's happening. And in the worst case scenarios, dreadful, dreadful results of stalking can occur, which can lead to serious harm or even death. On this slide here, it just gives you some of the things that have happened in the past where you can see clearly that victims are left at serious risk by police. That wasn't Devon and Cornwall. The one Kerry there was Devon and Cornwall. So we've got to really recognise what stalking is, the risk that's associated with it, and making sure we do a really good investigation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through some of the things that's happening in Devon and Cornwall. I'm going to go through some of the risks. I'm going to go through the difference between stalking and harassment, and just give you a whistle-stop tour of how I see stalking. You will have noticed I've stopped talking about harassment. Now, that's not because harassment isn't important and the police don't deal with it, but harassment, we get huge amounts of calls in around harassment. And what I really need to do is focus Devon and Cornwall Police and yourselves on the risks associated with stalking, which is different than harassment. And I'll take you through that. But if there is any questions, I can see you on my screen now. So just shout out and interrupt me. So this is new. This is a stalking super complaint. If you've never come across these, this is where an organisation will make a complaint against every police force in the country. And this is what this is about. So Susie Lamplugh Trust, you may have heard of it. Very sadly, Susie Lamplugh was an estate agent, and I believe that I'm correct in saying her body has never been found. But the Susie Lamplugh Trust was set up in memory of Susie, and also to support other victims of stalking. So you can see this goes over a period of years, but in 2022, they raised a complaint. In 2023, that became eligible for that very long acronym, which is basically our Ofsted of policing. So the HMIC, and then it's fire and rescue on the end. So it then got agreed in 2023. How they did the complaint is they went out to forces, 6 forces, you can see, Devon and Cornwall wasn't one. They reviewed lots of cases, they spoke to victims, all of that field work was done, and that fed into the complaint and those findings. IOPC are, for those who don't know, the people who investigate police. So if we've got a case that we shouldn't be investigating ourselves, normally internal issues, it would go over to the IOPC. So these were the main issues, and this is across the board for all forces. So misidentification of stalking offending. And the question that I raise here is, if we don't get it right and we can't identify stalking, we cannot expect a member of the public or a victim of stalking to phone up and say, hello, I'm a victim of stalking. It's section 4A in the law, and this is what's happening to me, and this is what you should do. So misidentification of stalking is really important. It's for us to get that right. It's also for us to bring awareness out to yourselves, out to the public, people that are communicating out of what is stalking, and then we can make sure that we then get into the next piece where we are investigating it. We've just, as part of the response to the stalking, I'll come on to some of the actions we've taken, but we've just changed some policies. That CID will be involved in more investigation of stalking now. We've got a real focus around non-DA stalking, which carries a substantial risk because it doesn't have that partnership engagement around it. And I'll talk a little bit about non-DA stalking. one of the other things that has happened today actually is there's a training package, and I've just had agreement. Kim Powell, one of my colleagues, went in to a meeting, and it's been agreed that we will do mandatory training for stalking. So I'm over the moon. It was about an hour ago, so really chuffed with that. So insufficient use of stalking protection orders. I'll touch on that as we go through. So if people don't know what they are, I can tell you about it. The next one's really interested is that how we respond to repeated breaches of stalking protection orders or other protective orders. So if you phone the police and say, my ex-partner has breached their bail, we go, thank you very much. We'll attend to that and we'll deal with the breach of bail. You phone up the next day, my partner's breached their bail. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. We'll deal with the breach of bail. Now, breach of police bail, very, very weak legislation. Court bail, quite strong legislation. But what we're missing is that stalking is a course of conduct of behaviour that's unwanted. So what are we doing about the fact that 2 breaches of a protection order, are we as police looking at that as a potential course of conduct and a new offence of stalking rather than 2 of breach of bail? So that's some of the work that we're doing and working through. This gives you the action plan. So myself, Rachel on the line, we've been working for the last, I think it's probably about 3 months, maybe a little bit longer, since December, but these are some of the things that we're doing. So we have an action plan up and running. Op Hibiscus was a review of every single stalking investigation that we did. It was a very busy time, but we reviewed just under 600 investigations. We've done an evaluation of it. We've taken the learning from that. So again, that's really positive. We've got a secondary review come in. So a stalking report will come into the police. We have a team of people who are picking that up and reviewing it, and that helps us with making sure that we get our response right. We've purchased some Susie Lampley training. We don't have a lot of funds, but we managed to purchase 200 licenses, and we will be delivering that into our stalking champions. Mandatory training there, that was agreed today, so I'm very, very pleased. And then you can see some other things there. The Chief Constable chairs of Ward Platinum, which stalking is part of. We're going to be doing a lived experience day, which is coming up in April. Policies and procedures. We've got subgroup, the CRC is the control room. So Rachel's been doing loads of work with the control room to make sure we get that right and they're not forgotten. We've increased our champion network. So we've got 40 additional stalking champions within the control room. And my thanks to Rachel for that. And we're really pushing performance. We're really making sure and we're highlighting where our performance isn't as good as it should be. So that is the Stalking Super-complaint. I'd give you a little health warning on the next slide. The young lady you're just about to speak was tragically killed. So again, if you feel you want to leave, please feel free to do so. It just runs for a little minute. Now, why I'm playing it is I want you to listen to what a victim of stalking sounds like when they call the police. And bear in mind that this beautiful young woman was killed approximately 2 weeks later after this phone call. So Rachel, could you do me a favour and make sure we can hear it?
Yep.
And there is a health warning on this because obviously the young lady has lost her life.
Hi there. I just need a bit of advice, really, more than anything. So I split up with my boyfriend about 3 months ago. Since then, I know that he's hacked into my Facebook and also my phone. He's been sending me a lot of messages, even though I've asked him not to contact me. And basically, like, just messaging my friends and things. And then tonight, he's well, I had a knock at my door. And, well, he'd sent me a message saying I've been in the garden since 5. I had a knock at my door. And then when I went and I've got like a little, you know, the thing that you can look through, and there was no one there. And then it happened again 2 or 3 times. And then he's come round the back, knocked on my bedroom window at the back of my flat, it's the ground floor flat. He's been outside and he's like left some flowers and chocolates on the like outside windowsill, and like he walked off. He's not done anything, but I'm concerned. I've been putting off like my friends have been telling me to call the police. I've been putting it off, but I just feel a bit like shaken up tonight. So.
I'd be really interested in anyone's views. If anybody wants to speak, I know there's a lot of people on the line. You may not feel comfortable, but what I'm keen to get your thoughts around, and I'll come to you in a second, Keely, thank you, is if that call comes in where someone is leaving flowers and gifts, which is a nice thing to do, ex-boyfriends come round, knocked on the door, wants to speak. How do we understand the risk that's associated with this situation when this poor lady is so apologetic about calling, clearly doesn't understand the risk that towards herself? And what I will say before we come to a little discussion is that Alice's family worked really closely with the police, and although the police did not respond to this in the right way, they are very supportive of the police. I do attend, and my colleagues attend their conference that they run every year, and I have permission to talk about Alice as well. So they do an awful lot of work, and they do a lot of work with schools. So Keely, I welcome you into the conversation. Please, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was just going to mention that because I literally was listening to a podcast last week with her parents, and that's what I was just going to say about. I know she made that call, and then there was another call, and the police reaction to that, because they said, "Oh, that." I don't know what the difference is, and you might be able to explain, but they kind of almost shut down the crime and they didn't then react to the second call. Perhaps you can explain that. And that's you know, as a female, you want to know, if you are calling the police and then calling them again, that what you need to say to make sure that they keep that crime open, and if it is a crime at that stage.
I don't know the ins and outs of the police's decision making, but I'll go from my own personal points of view, is that it could be with a stalking, you already have a crime. So instead of generating another one, they just add that on to say there's been more contact. So there wouldn't be two stalking crimes because it's a course of conduct. And they might have said, well, it's already over here and it's allocated and it's given to someone. So do we need to respond again? But that's my own take on it, because I've not seen their decision making from it. But I think your point is really interesting, that if I listen to that, and I'm an officer of 20 years service, I've seen and done things that I wouldn't wish on you know, anybody. I can't pick up the risk in that. I cannot, you know, with all the calls that we get in, how do I differentiate that from another one to say this needs a 999 response, or this is where this one is going? Now, probably from my stalking experience, I could ask more questions and I could get more information out, because if you actually had a conversation with Alice and really got into there, the fear and what was happening would come out in that conversation. But then we're asking our control rooms to be able to understand the risk that's posed there. So we are doing work within our control room, and this video is being played to all sergeants, I think it is, across the force, which I'm really, really grateful for, because by listening to this, and it's the same as domestic abuse victims, they will minimize what's happening to them and they just want it to stop. So Keely, thank you. I don't know whether that answers your question or not.
Thank you.
Kate?
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about making that link between non-contact offences and the way that they escalate. And I feel like there are red flags here still, even though I totally get what you're saying about the fact that she seems apologetic and is trying to minimise the situation.
And she just wants it to stop. You know how difficult it is. You know, I like getting flowers, I like getting gifts. How difficult it is to make a phone call and say, I've had some flowers and I'm scared. Because actually that doesn't make sense, does it? Because if I get flowers, I'm really pleased. So all of that behaviour, which was seen as a nice thing to do, Alice has got to try and verbalise the fear that it's causing her. Now, I can look at this in retrospect, or I can look at it from my experience and say, I know that this person traveled hours to get to her address. The fact that they're seeking proximity, the fact that they're knocking on the door and it's unwelcome, this risk is going up and up. But you've got to get that information. So it's non-contact is really difficult, because one of the questions the control room will ask is the perpetrator there now? Because to do a 999 call, that person needs to be in immediate danger. So Alice would have said, no, he's gone. So that 999 call and response would not have happened. It's really tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky.
Cheryl, over to you.
Thank you. I think it is really tricky, and I don't want to diminish in any way how difficult it is to sort of extrapolate the risk from that call. But she also said that her friends were telling her that she should have phoned. She sounded obviously concerned. She said that she was frightened. And I think you just made the point a minute ago, you know, when somebody plucks up the courage to phone the police, who isn't normally known to the police, who's not normally somebody who's making, you know, hoax calls all the time, I think we do need to take stock and listen, because I know I work in health and I know the number of people who say, I didn't want to phone the doctor because I know they're really busy. I didn't want to make a fuss. I left it, you know, I've worked in cancer care for many years, and you say to people, why didn't you tell us sooner? They didn't want to make a fuss. So when they are taking time out to pick up the phone and call and ask for help, they're not doing it lightly. But again, you know, it's easy, isn't it, to say with hindsight, with the retrospectoscope, as we call it, you know, what we should have done, what we could have done differently. But I heard enough in that for me to be worried, and I'm not police, I am a nurse. So I just think, you know, when you think about the contextual bits around picking up the phone and making that call, telling you her friends have told her she should have been reporting it sooner, that all sends a red flag up the pole for me.
Yeah, and brilliant points well made, and I'm really grateful for it. And I love the way you've compared that to going to the doctor. It's brilliant. I'll probably use that in the future, to be honest, if you don't mind. You know, we are playing this video to a lot of people. So with the learning that comes from it and these discussions, it's really useful within a police environment, and it will make a difference. And I know everything that happens with Alice Ruggles' family and everything they do, it makes a difference. And, you know, even showing this to yourselves, we can able to have that conversation about risk, which is exactly what I wanted. Bernice.
From that situation of a relationship ending, you could look at the typologies, and that he would be the rejected typology. And what we know is that the rejected typologies are more likely to use violence. And it could be that maybe there could be further training for those in the control room to pick up the differences between the typologies, and maybe ask questions that are designed, I mean, for the rejected typologies, because we also know that that type is the most prolific as well. So it might be that, you know, we could have more focus into that specific behavior, and kind of I forget what the word is, but sort of explain to the control room that this is what this is what to ask as further questions potentially.
It's absolutely fabulous, and I'll touch on it a little bit. And you've stolen one of my slides, but I'll forgive you for it. Yeah, it's really important, and it is something that we are doing. So I'll touch on it a little bit, but it's I think it's for the public to be aware of the risks around it as well. So it goes wider than the control room. It's there, so fabulous. Right, I'm going to do 2 more questions, and I'm going to move on because I won't get to the rest of my slides. So I have Joe next.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to sort of ask you, you're talking about, you know, the understandable difficulties in being the control room and receiving this call, and sort of what is the action that is taken. Can you give me some insight into why some sort of intermediate action wouldn't be taken? Like, is it a resourcing issue? Is it a because there's clearly some, like, I'm not saying necessarily that there needed to be a blues and twos situation here, especially if he had left the premises. There might have been limited advantage to that in that case. But is it, you know, how are these decisions, like what are these decisions being based on? Because you've clearly, at the very, very minimum, got someone who is experiencing something they feel is extremely distressing to them. As the chat has extensively pointed out, there are multiple red flags throughout this conversation. You know, and we are all sat here obviously with the knowledge and hindsight of what happened to them. So it's easy for us to sit here and go, well, of course, obviously, here, listen to her voice. But I would still be interested to know what the sort of thinking is around how these decisions are made in terms of because I don't see that there's a downside to someone going and talking to the person and getting some more information and really kind of assessing this risk. And I realized this was 10 years ago as well. So there's that aspect of it.
Yeah. There's lots of changes, I think, that's happened. So for Devon and Cornwall Police, I'm not an expert in the control room, but you have your 999. They use what's called a thrive to understand, so it's threat risk harm type, to decide whether it's 999 or a different response. This would fall for us under a P1 vulnerability, which means that we should be visiting within 6 hours. So I hope that answers your question. Because it's domestic abuse, the stalking, it would be within 6 hours, or when that person is available to speak to us. If she had said, he's here now, he's knocking on my door, it would have been a 999.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Heather?
Hi there. Yeah, I just want to raise one issue there, that with lived experience, it's really, really embarrassing to actually call the police for help. I had a situation, I was in my 30s and I was stalked by a 16-year-old boy, now known as a prolific offender and has spent a lot of time in secure units. And I consider myself very lucky that the police did come out immediately and things had built up gradually. But getting over that embarrassment to actually make that call, because I honestly thought people think I'm mad.
Heather, I'd love to speak to you outside of this. If you want to put your email address in the sidebar, if you'd be happy to chat to myself and my colleague, we'd love to chat and find out
more. It's a long time ago, I hasten to add.
Don't know,
it's
honestly.
30 years ago.
Thank you so much for sharing. No, we'd love just to chat with you about it. And you're 100% right. And I do have to move on because I'll get told off by Rebecca. But one of the things I've dealt a lot in investigation is dealing with rape victims or serious sexual assault. And this is the way I look at it. Can you imagine telling someone you don't know something so personal to you in graphic detail, and it was something that was done to you by force? And we ask that of people.
Absolutely.
Do you know, it's, and you know, picking that call up and try and explain, and that's one of the reasons I play this is, you know, Alice didn't understand the risk. That's up to me. That's up to us to understand that risk. You know, for Alice to phone us, she just thinks she's bothering us. She's getting gifts and all of those things. Thank you for a really good conversation. And I'm going to whip through these slides.
Thank you.
So stalking versus harassment. How do we tell the difference? It's really grey. It's really grey because the law is grey, but this may help a little bit. Signs of stalking: fixated, obsessive, unwanted, repeated. Okay. The key thing there is the top two, fixated and obsessive. Unwanted and repeated are the same that are in harassment. I'll give you a really good example. Rachel and I have been in a relationship and we've broken up. And Rachel has taken our dog. So I am phoning Rachel up every hour saying, I want my dog back. I want my dog back. I'm texting, I'm going around and banging on the door. I report that to the police. Rachel reports to the police, Dawn is harassing me. If I give the dog back, if she gives the dog back, I can't remember who's got the dog, but whoever gives the dog back, that's going to stop. That's not stalking, that's harassment. So what we've got to think about is if there's a specific issue, where it becomes grey is that stalkers could use child contact. They could use a specific issue as part of the bigger stalking. And that's where it gets a little bit grey. But if we try and think about if the specific issue was removed, that gives us a starting point in trying to understand the difference between stalking and harassment. This slide has loads of words on it. Karen. You there, Karen?
Have I got my hand up? Have I?
Yeah. Were you
Oh,
giving
I
me
didn't
a
mean
thumbs
to.
up?
No, I don't know. I don't think I touched anything. Sorry, apologies.
No worries, don't apologise. So stalking harassment, lots of words on here. You'll get a copy of this slide, and you'll be able to go through it. And some of the things that you put on here, the big one for me is, what is the amount of time and effort is the suspect or perpetrator investing? Because if they text you once a week on a Friday, that's unlikely to be stalking. If someone is driving 5 hours to leave flowers at your door and then flowers driving home, and that's a 10-hour round trip, that's likely to be stalking. So you can see how grey it is, but this helps us a little bit here. And I will whip through these slides now. But if there is any questions, shut them out. This one's a little bit, I could say it's a bit dull. It's the law. So this just basically gives you two legislations. Section 2A would be what the lower offence of stalking would be. So that would be without a fear of violence or without serious alarm and distress, which is causing that impact to someone's life. Now, our campaigners and the Susie Lampley Trust will argue that no stalking would sit in a 2A. So there is conversations going on at a government level to actually say that all stalking should fall within that 4A section. It gives you some ideas about it, but you can see section 2A says loitering in any place. Well, if someone was loitering outside my workplace, that's going to terrify me. So actually, this is where this grey comes in. And it's up to us as police to educate the people we work with to make sure we're really understanding what type of offence it is and really trying to get it into this section 4A. And what makes the difference is you have longer to investigate it, and it will go to Crown Court for the higher one, so you get bigger punishments. Your typology, bring them out. We talked about it earlier. You'll see on there, we were talking about the rejected stalker, 54% from Crime Stoppers data. For us, it's a huge amount of people that have come out of a relationship. But something to bear in mind is when someone ends a relationship, the risk goes up. So actually, what we've got to take into consideration is not only are they a rejected stalker with what is associated around it, they've lost their relationship, they might have lost their home and all of those sorts of things. The important thing on the bottom here is this one at the bottom, the predatory stalker. If we go way back to the beginning, the police officer who killed Sarah Everard, that's what he was. And you can see a very small amount of people sit in this, and they will normally need clinical intervention. An arrest will not work with these people. And you'll see on these other ones here, incompetent and intimacy, it's psychiatric treatment. Mental health plays a big part in stalking, and it's one of the risk factors. But from a Devon and Cornwall Police point of view, this is where our majority of reports come from. This is the one thing that you can take away if you're talking to anyone, whether it's family, friend, colleague, anything at all. These risks, if they've got 1, 2, 3 of these things, this is what is increasing the risk of the person. So if we think back to the call, how many of these were on the Alice Ruggles call? Seeking proximity, yes. Escalation in behaviour, yes, because she's saying, I've got to a point now where I'm phoning you and I'm scared. Last resort thinking, we don't know that, but whether or not we could pull that out in that conversation potentially. Unavoidable contact, no. That would normally be if you live together, work together, in the same street, had children together. Previous offending history, I don't know whether they looked at his offending history, but if they did and he'd had previous any type of behaviour, again, it goes up. Significant loss could be to do with the loss of relationship. So let's put in tick 3 that we know of already. Mental health of the suspect, not sure, would find that out as the checks. So he had a minimum of these 3 things and potentially 2 more. And that is how we are teaching and how we're educating the police in our organisation around risk. And that, I hope, will answer your question, as this training does go into the control room and they are given these risk factors. Just want to touch, you may not see it because of the different colours, but again, you'll have this domestic homicide timeline. It's really important. And the main thing on here, if you've not seen it, you can Google it, you can see all about it. This shows you the precursors to violence, to homicide, to serious harm. And what you will see at stage 5 of that homicide timeline, so this is only in a domestic setting that it's evidenced, you see stalking appear. So this, again, if we're looking at this timeline of behaviour, if someone in a DA relationship has started stalking, they're already at 5. So if I go back to that call with Alice, I've got 3, maybe 5 risk factors, and I'm already at stage 5 of this. So we start putting that together and looking at it right back at the beginning, victim at the heart of it, looking at the whole bigger picture. I now can see all of those red flags in that call because I understand the risks and I understand this. And we've delivered this training and offered this out to partners as well. If you've not been offered it, give me a shout if you want to do it. But this is offered out to our officer colleagues. So suspect management, the one on here, which I've mentioned, time investment. This is really dangerous. This is what I feel is the real, what Jane Monckton Smith talks about in Domestic Homicide Timeline, what you see in the Alice Ruggles and what you'll see in a lot of other tragic cases is the time investment. If it's the perpetrator's full-time job to stalk someone, you have a significant risk. Then we've got threats. So if we're seeing that escalation, how bold are they? You know, we go back to Alice again. He's at her door. He's at her bedroom window. That is a boldness. Then you look at the intimate distance of that tactic. How close is he getting? He's really close. He is dropping flowers off at her door. So again, these are the types of things that we're teaching people when they're investigating. Really interesting at the bottom, a substantial proportion of stalkers continue to stalk after being reported to police. Reporting to us is not enough. It's not enough. We have to make sure there's safeguarding in place. We have to look at safety planning and all of those things. And that comes back to mental health. In a lot of the cases, the perpetrator or the suspect has mental health issues. By arresting people, we can get them into custody and they can have a mental health assessment, which helps us then make the decisions. I'm going to touch really lightly on stalking protection orders. You'll think back to the Stalking Super-complaint, where we talked about the police aren't using these enough. We have increased these considerably since the Stalking Super-complaint came out. And what we ask of our colleagues is that in every case of stalking, we consider one. We have vulnerability lawyers who are able to assist investigators and then take that to court.
Today, one to
Somebody's not on mute, so just shout out, just in case you say anything you may not want everyone to hear.
Apologies, it's me and my dogs. I'm just telling my
all
husband
right.
that they've been for a walk.
As just, you know, when you're not quite sure what someone's going to say, so everyone sort of cringes and waits, I thought I'd be outspoken and say, be careful. Stalking protection orders, they're out there, we can use them, they are really good bits of kit. So you can get onto Google and have a look if you want a little bit more detail about them. What's wonderful about them is you don't need a conviction, you don't need a prosecution, so we can still get them if someone doesn't feel like they want to support prosecution or we don't have enough evidence for it. We can still go down this route. These are the really important things that we are putting out to investigators, and they're things you may be interested in. 4 mnemonic, we talked about that, fixated, obsessive, unwanted, repeated. Our risk assessments are DASH or DARA. It's how we do our risk assessments. We also have a stalking risk assessment for non-DA. These are the types of things that we're telling people, get this information at the beginning of your investigation. Make sure we're really clear. Stalking champions, we've got over 100 across the force now. We're trying to get that cohort bigger, and I basically do a very similar presentation to the stalking champions as well. Early arrest, really important for us. Get the person into custody. I'm going to touch on cyber stalking for about 2 minutes. Cyber stalking, it's changing everything. What we're finding is that people are being stalked and they don't know. So you then got an issue with the law says you have to be harassed, alarmed or distressed. Well, they're not, because they don't know they're being stalking. And the first time that they're told that they're being stalked might be a police officer knocking on their door, because stalking is being taken place covertly. It's being taken place in the technical world. Now, I am not an expert on cyber stalking in any way whatsoever, but what we have done is funded some cyber specialists to support our investigators, which is really, really good for Devon and Cornwall. Cyber stalking, majority of stalking is going to have some sort of cyber enabled or dependent part of it, because we carry around computers in our pockets. Huge computers that used to be this big are now mobile phones. They're in our pocket and they allow us to connect with one another. What they also do is allow stalking to take place. And one of the things my colleague Rachel brought up earlier is around young people not understanding that certain behaviors are really unhealthy and are actually stalking, where in fact, you know, your boyfriend wanting you to have Find My Girlfriend on their app, I don't know what it's called. I'm too old, but I believe there's apps that you can know where people are all the time. Actually, a lot of you will have kids, so I'm sure you've done the same with your children. But where's that line? Where is it? Where does it cross? We know that there's tracking devices out there. We know apps can go on phones. This slide, loads of information on here. You can read this, but it just gives some information about what potentially can happen. Things like data gathering, things like invasion of privacy, spyware on your phone. And then the next slide gives you some actions of what to do. So this one's really good. Ton of all tracking on all apps. And this could even be on, Rachel brought up earlier, you can get smart fridges. Now, I didn't know that, but actually all of these things somebody can connect into. So you've got to be aware, your phone, your watches, your Apple phone, your watches and that type of things. There's some indications of when a device may have been hacked. Something will go wrong on that phone. And hacking doesn't happen very often. It's more likely that someone has shared a password at some point, so they can access your phone through the password. Hacking, it takes a little bit more work and expertise, if you like, where it's really easy to share a password or work a password out. The main advice is change passwords and use strong passwords. So that's the advice we would give out to the public and a victim of stalking, whilst also signposting them to the cyber stalking helpline. So there's your advice. Never block a stalker on a mobile phone or using contact, because it may escalate their behavior. So we don't tell people to block ever. So if anyone's chatting to you about stalking and they say, shall I block my phone? Do not do that, because it could push the stalker into an escalation of their behavior. So if they're doing it on the phone, then they can't do it anymore. Are they going to turn up in person? So we don't block phone. We do want to tell people, like Alice, all her friends are saying, phone the police, phone the police. Phone the police, tell people, make sure everyone is aware. And actually, at that point, it becomes, it's not me thinking this is, I'm making a fuss about stalking or I'm making a fuss about unwanted contact. People will start to say to you, this is really scary. This is bad. You need some help. That's really important. We tell people to retain everything, record everything. We want it all. We want that device checked, whether you do a factory restart, take it into a phone shop or come to the police, and we can signpost into the cyber helpline. Social media, so dangerous. There's some really good clips I've seen where you basically have a photograph of someone, and then in 5 steps of someone doing research, they can find out where you live just because they've got a little bit of a street, a little bit of a signpost, or they can tell a sort of house or whatever it may be. But things on social media, you've got to be really careful of. I'm going to take a breath. I've got to be done by 4:15. I've got one more video to play. It's really short, but I'll take any questions before I play the video so I can have a drink and a breather. So is there anything about what I've just rushed through with so much information? Thank you, Mike. Let me have a rest. What was that?
Oh yeah.
Mike,
So yeah, I work for the Youth Justice Service, and I'm just wondering what differences you find between adults and young people, and sometimes there's a blur between perpetrators and victims of it.
Yeah, completely. I mean, we get that in policing and in the criminal justice system a lot. That blur between suspect and victims can happen. You know, even with a fraud, it's difficult to unpick. So with children, what I would say is, and what I've been told, and we're going to be running a young persons forum to go out and speak to young people, because as you can see, I am not young, so this world is new to me. But the work that we have done is that young people think it's normal And that's the problem. So they're even less likely to identify they're being stalked or harassed because, you know, a social media site where you put a thumbs up or you put a heart or you put a comment, you look at, you know, the famous people in that space, they want to be followed, they want to be having comments, they want all of that. So I believe that young people will not identify stalking, which makes it an issue. So it's about that education in the space, and it's around healthy relationships. So it's saying your boyfriend doesn't or your girlfriend doesn't need to know where you are all the time. You don't need these things on the app. You don't need to check in with them every hour. You shouldn't be getting 100 phone calls a day. So Mike, I don't know if that helps, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, that's sort of the common things we see, and they don't notice that it is.
Yeah, unhealthy, 100%. Thank you. Okay, any other questions before I play the final video, which is about 2 minutes long?
There's a question in the chat, Dawn.
Is there?
It says, how can you protect someone or yourself from a stalker when they are anonymous?
Really, so that would be like your non-DA stalker. I don't know who's put that in there. So all of the things that we've talked about is that you must report to police, even if you don't know who it is, you report to police. You keep a log of everything that's happening. And one of the difficulties is with this is that your car might be damaged. So you phone up and you report a criminal damage. You then might get, I don't know, some spray painting on a wall. So you phone up and report another criminal damage. And what's happening is the police are looking at these incidents in a singular way. So it's about making sure that everything that's happening is told to the police. If it is someone who is unknown, police have got certain tactics, and we have got the ability to have a look, and I've got to be really careful when being recorded. There are ways to help us identify people. So my advice will always be tell the police, come to us, and let us see what we can find out. Does that answer your question?
Thanks, Dawn. I think that's really well answered.
Thank you. And there's lots of safety things you can do, but the first thing I'd be saying is come to us, because we may be able to identify that person. You know, people can put in your doorbell cams, you can put in that sort of stuff, your CCTV, you can make sure your devices are safe, you can make sure your social media is safe, all of those types of things. But the first thing you do, you've got to tell someone, you've got to tell us. If you don't want to come to the police, go to one of our partner agencies who support stalking victims. Jenna.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, is this all relevant to professionals? So like in terms of the process the police would follow, I'm just saying, I recently left Kafkas, and a lot of our work was domestic abuse related risks. And there was a mum who was seriously at high risk. We did manage to get protective orders put in through the family court. But then the perpetrator, who had no convictions but actually is like super scary in terms of his behavior, then started using, because we had protective orders for mum, started using myself then as a way of to continue the abuse, including trying to sue me for millions and millions of pounds, which obviously was not going to happen.
Do you not have that much money then?
No. But like, obviously, I mean, not so much for myself, because I can take measures to kind of protect myself, and he clearly didn't know my home address. He's clearly not clued up enough to figure that out, because else he would have sent the court documents to my house, and he didn't. He sent it to the employer. So but I'm just thinking, in those circumstances, is that something we would report to the police, and as employers, do we actually have a responsibility to do that? Because I get a lot of it through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So people,
you've minimized. You've done exactly what Alice did. You said, "Don't worry about it. I'll sort it out myself. It doesn't bother me. He doesn't know where I live."
I think it's a typical social worker thing to be fair.
But right at the beginning, you went, "He's really dangerous. He's really dangerous.
Yeah,
he's threatening me." But it's fine. Don't worry about it. So my advice to you is yes, 100% yes. Report to us, because if he's got no previous, even if yours comes in and it's not a crime, we don't raise it a crime. We need that information about him to build a picture.
Yeah, brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you.
No worries. Right, shall I play this video? Rachel, can you just double check with me that it's playing? once I've started, oh, it's moved to another screen. No, it hasn't. It's come back. You'll get a copy of this and you can use it as you see fit.
This summer, I can be sad with you. Just take my hand. Cupid's got his work cut out.
Have a nice. Oh no. It's terrible timing. Let's give it a second.
But every time I bring you to a restaurant, this is exactly what you do.
But Jack isn't giving up. I wanna stay with you. It's gonna take a grand gesture. I love the way that you love. A leap of faith. Let's run up through the fields and a little help from her friends.
Please stop it now.
To win his girl around.
Rowan's unmarried. Hello.
And conquer her heart.
Life isn't like the movies. Let's stop normalizing stalking. If you notice this type of behavior, record it and report it before it escalates further. There are 4 ways to identify stalking. Fixated. Does the person find different ways to get your attention or become part of your life? Obsessed. Do they always want to know where you are, what you're doing? Unwanted. Have you asked them to stop? Repeated. Do they continue to contact you? If you have concerns that you may be a victim of stalking, please contact us for help or visit our website for more information.
I think it's a really good way to end it because it succinctly puts together what I've just spent an hour trying to explain. And it's really impactful. We don't normalize stalking. It is dangerous. We should all be trying to educate each other around this subject. And Devon and Cornwall Police and myself will continue to work with you, hopefully, going forward. So if anybody wants to stay on the line, we'll